Hello, everybody. Thank you guys for stopping through. Really appreciate you guys. Jay Hunter Lee here. We got some very, very important stuff to talk about today. And I have some help. And I have some great help. So you guys get ready. So let's get into it. Well, if it's going to be, it's up to me to fulfill my dreams and possibilities with dedication and motivation to inspire thousands from all nations. When times are tough and breaks you down, just smile with toughness and rebuild from the ground. During tough times, adversity is a lot. Just remember, time flies, but you are the pilot. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and good morning to some of you, and good evening to those of you who are over in the eastern regions. I'm Jay Hunter Lee here. Thank you for stopping through. We have some great information that we want to share with you today in terms of your health, talking about your immune system. You guys have heard me talk about this a lot, but today I have someone who is very, very special in giving this information. This person is documented. This person has all the credentials they need to share with you very, very vital and important information. So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you all. Her name is Dr. Atousa Mahdavi, and she is on with me right now, folks. She is a powerhouse. We met on Clubhouse about a week ago, and I said, "Oh my goodness, I have to get her on my podcast because she's amazing. She has an amazing smile. She has an amazing personality, and she loves to help people. She loves to give information. So, Dr. Atousa, can you hear me very well?
Yes, I can hear you. For now, that's great. Yes. Hello,
Awesome.
everyone, and thank you for having me, Jay, on your show. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to having you. Listen, I remember you sent me your bio. Um, you've done quite a bit of things, and this was a short bio, and you had a lot in that short bio, including being on the faculty of one of the great respected universities over in California. Can you give us a little bit of your background and how you got into your field and tell everybody why you're so amazing?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, so I started as a chiropractor. So about 26 years ago, to be exact, in April of 1994, I graduated with a doctorate degree from Cleveland Chiropractic University. And within a few years, as I noticed that a lot of my patients also had comorbid conditions, they weren't just suffering from neuromusculoskeletal conditions, which is really the scope of treatment for chiropractors, but they would come to me and they would have diabetes, they would have high blood pressure, or they would have autoimmune diseases such as rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, Crohn's disease, digestive issues, etc. And so I wanted to expand my knowledge and scope of also treating these type of ailments. So I got a certification in integrative medicine and functional medicine as a chiropractor, and I started treating some of these chronic ailments through natural, remedies and holistic methodology. And the functional medicine involves blood testing, tissue mineral analysis, and multiple different layers of testing that basically gives you a baseline of physiology. And the treatments are very individualized because it's based on the baseline of the physiology of the patients. And I had been also starting at the time, meaning about 20 years ago, practicing yoga for my own health and for my own not only physical health but mental emotional health. And it was very effective for me. I totally became a practitioner of yoga, and at like about three to four times a week I would do yoga about an hour and a half each time. But pretty soon that personal experience with yoga and the way that it helped me physically speaking but also mental emotionally speaking, I started incorporating some of the postures with therapeutic exercises, and I would teach my patients at my office, and have them have a home regiment of if a mixture of some of the therapeutic yoga postures with chiropractic. I did that for years, but then I decided to really learn it more methodically speaking from the classical perspective of yoga. So I went to India. And I enrolled in an, a classical traditional school of hatha yoga, and I lived there for 6 months. And I basically am now a master hatha yoga teacher. And so then I started teaching that. And at the same time that I was in India, during the teacher training, they gave us a short course in introduction to Ayurvedic medicine, and I fell in love with it because it tapped into a little bit of a more esoteric aspect of human physiology, health, and wellness. And it was almost like the missing link in my toolbox. And I've always been so curious and so in love of learning. And uh, honestly, I think that I've always been a student. And I think that the best teachers continue educating themselves, and they are long term, lifelong students. So then I came back to the States from India, and I found a couple of schools that I could study Ayurveda. So at the same time that I was working full time, I also went back to school and I studied Ayurvedic medicine. And so I graduated from Southern California University of Health Sciences with my degree in Ayurveda. And it is an integrative health university of medicine. And they hired me also to teach as a teacher a few years after I had already graduated. So now I teach there. I'm a part-time faculty there because I still have my private practice and I still treat patients, in my clinic, etc. And so that's a short summary of how I got into it and what I've done so far.
That is amazing. That's why she's amazing, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Now,
Thank you.
you put a lot of work in. You is it not the money aspect, but the time you invested in yourself. And I tell people all the time, in order for you to earn more, you have to learn more. And you seem to do exactly what a lot of my mentors have told me, which is to commit to lifelong learning. And you are learning something that you have a very, very deep passion for. So, and now you're also a professor on a part-time basis as well. You're teaching the knowledge that you know, what you've learned, and then some, which is a great thing. The world gets better when we teach people to be better than we are. And
Absolutely.
so let's go into the. I know you and I spoke on the phone earlier. I think a week ago, close to a week ago, and we talked about Monday. I think it was Monday, right? We spoke on the phone, and you were telling me about the MD doctors, that you pretty much went through the same curriculum, so to speak, as an MD doctor before you branched out into your interest of practice. Is that correct? Or if
So
and I
what?
didn't
Yeah,
completely do it, just correct me on that.
yeah. So there is a misconception about what chiropractors learn in chiropractic school, and the misconception is that um, they think that we don't study the same courses as the medical doctors study, even though our scope of practice as a chiropractor is different. As chiropractic doctors and physicians is different, our scope of practice and treatment, but we studied the same sciences, uh, basic sciences, health and clinical sciences in chiropractic school as what medical doctors study in the 4 year of medical school. In fact, we study more anatomy than
Hmm.
medical doctors. I mean, the hours that we study the human body as chiropractors in chiropractic school is a lot more hours. We study the same physiological sciences, neurophysiology, neuroanatomy, uh, physiology itself, pathology, and biochemistry. A lot of the courses that they study are the same. Like they're the same textbooks of pathology and physiology and anatomy, and so a lot of these sciences, basic health sciences, are the same. Some of the prerequisites are the same to enter chiropractic school. Then once you enter the chiropractic school, the chiropractic schools are separate from medical schools, and that has been an intentional, I think, approach both from the chiropractic perspective and the medical perspective. And because we have a different philosophy, we have a different approach. And historically speaking, there has always been this tug of war between the authorities in the medical realm and the authorities in the chiropractic realm. Uh, Whereas medicine is conventional in its approach, and it's basically a sick care approach. Chiropractic is a holistic approach. It's a preventative approach. It's lifestyle, all of that. The philosophies are different. So also historically speaking, there has been this sort of um, campaign, negative campaign, if you will, by the American Medical Association, which was really put together and founded by the Rockefeller Foundation, something close to 150 years ago. And so there was a whole campaign about 130 years ago, 120 years ago, against chiropractors, calling them quacks or practicing without a medical license. So the progression of that is that chiropractors have their own board of medicine. Chiropractic medical examiner is basically the board of chiropractic examiners. And then you have the American Medical Association. So the boards are different. So the schools were always kept separate. But there has always been a negative campaign against chiropractors. And it's been something that the public also repeats. Like, a lot of people that don't really get into these issues deeply, and they don't really understand the curriculums that the chiropractors study, so they hear something from their MDs, their medical doctors, and they repeat the same thing. Chiropractors are not doctors, where in fact we are doctors. Have a doctorate degree in chiropractic medicine, and we legally are called doctors. And so based on our knowledge of the basic sciences of medicine, we have the capacity, scientifically speaking, to read and interpret and write scientific journals. And so a lot of times, as you have seen in like places like Clubhouse and other debates, etc., when a lot of these medical doctors come in the room, they want to call naturopaths, they're not doctors. They say chiropractors, they're not doctors. And they sort of attack our credentials, not our scientific argument. So they don't want to have a scientific debate with us because they cannot refute our scientific evidence or our scientific argument. They can't debate it because, number one, they are not interested in reading the scientific literature on some of the adverse effects of, let's say, drugs and medical intervention, including some of the vaccines, etc. And they don't want to read it, even when it's written by peer-reviewed medical doctors, virologists, immunologists, vaccinologists. They don't even want to read that. Now, so when we argue and bring in those kind of evidence, studies, and research into the debate, they are not interested in those. But instead of debating and bring their scientific evidence, they basically attack you on your credentials. And that's what's happening. And then so a lot of people that don't know any better repeat those kind of uh, statements that, oh, well, they go and read, your credentials. Oh, yeah, you're not an MD. You can't, comment on these things. I very, very well can. I may not be treating someone unless a lot of post-COVID patients have come to me, in fact, a lot of long haulers. And so it's a matter of choice for the public which route they want to use. Do they want to use the alternative route, the holistic route, or do they want to take the conventional route? Everybody has a choice.
Yeah, but you know what? You said something that really sounds familiar. When you talk about the medical doctors, this the propaganda they put out against is most of biased propaganda that they put out against a chiropractor, and they don't want to have the debate because they don't want their listeners or their followers to question why would you say these things about the chiropractor when they are just as qualified as you are to talk about certain issues. And that sounds familiar with, I've listened to a lady in an interview who lived through the World War II era. And she talked about Hitler, how he led 11 million people to their death. And what happened was he were to lie to them through propaganda, through radio bands. And he would censor any other radio band that would try to warn the people about the dangers that they're getting ready to face by following his agenda. He would censor those other radio bands, and he would not allow the people to listen to other radio bands, or they will be punished if they were caught listening to other radio bands. So he started putting up mandates. He started censoring. 11 million people died. They
Yep.
weren't warned. And then he had so much influence over them. If anyone came to them and said, hey, you need to look deeply into his agenda, you really need to start thinking of your own, do your own due diligence. And guess what these people said to them? You're just a conspiracy theorist.
Yep.
I mean, they were so buried in the propaganda and to the agenda of someone that they thought that they trust at the time, led them to their death. And this reminds me of the same agenda, the same scenario today, where
Mhm.
someone who knows better, who really knows the science to the vaccines, they know what's in the vaccines, they know what the vaccines do. And I mean, I'm not talking about you get a shot today and 2 or 3 days later you say, "Oh, I'm fine." No. We're talking about several years down the road, And when people hear that, if it didn't come from CNN, NBC, ABC,
Yeah.
CBS, the Washington Post,
Yeah.
the New York Times, the I call it the left wing bias media outlets,
Yeah.
but they predominantly rules the minds of minority people,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So, and when I hear that, and I hear my own family, my own people tell me I'm a conspiracy theorist. Okay, well, if I carry the title of conspiracy theorist, then that means I am up 1,000% because I'm up 1,000 points because everything I predicted a year ago is happening today.
Yeah.
And what makes it worse is that you won't turn off the TV, you won't go do your diligence, and because the TV has manipulated you, now you're suffering what is called cognitive dissonance,
Yes.
because now you see people bringing you information
Yeah.
that debunks your belief and you refuse to see it. If my shirt is black and you've been told for several years I have a green shirt, the same shirt, and then when you see me and it's black, you question why is it black?
Yes. Yeah. Oh my
Right?
gosh. Yeah. So true. So true. I mean, this is like you said, it's a slow and insidious mind control and programming through the mainstream media. Just like
Yes.
you said during the time of Hitler, like with his, you know, whatever, the propaganda machine, he had full control of the media. Exactly
Mhm.
what's happening now. And the
Yes.
people who are simple, naive, including my own family as well, hopefully they don't listen to this. And, so we are kind of the lone wolves, right? Like you said, everything we've been saying since last year that was referred to as conspiracy, it's no longer a conspiracy. But it's funny because people have been so badly indoctrinated that they
Right.
are, like you said, they are like,
Exactly.
oh, you know, and then they have justifications, and they um, basically try to um, change the story around what's happening because of cognitive dissonance, so they don't have to really buy into the
Mhm.
truth that we've been saying since last year. And
Yes.
yeah, so it's like insidious, slowly, slowly. And then before you know it, you're in a tyrannical system. You live in a
Exactly.
tyrannical system.
Exactly. So let me share this, and you can you are you're the doctor here. You can either correct me or you can add to what I'm getting ready to say, because I want to start getting into how the audience now see what your credentials are, and I want to go into the immune system. Okay, and this is something I shared, you know, a year ago. I remember elementary school science. I remember in science, W.B. Patterson Elementary School in Washington, D.C. To this day, my science teacher name was Mr. Lee. No relations, Caucasian man, brilliant man, and he loved teaching, right? One thing I've learned from him, first, he taught our class how electricity was generated from fossil fuel. Started there, but then he also taught us about our immune system. He didn't go deep into it because we were so young, we couldn't register it all at the time, but I register a lot of stuff from science. And one thing I can remember, we have in our body that is called white blood cells. Our white blood cells are also known as memory cells for the purpose of the immune system to record any microbe that attacks the body, and it keeps a record of it so that if those microbes were to return, it kills it a lot quicker before you can get sick. Okay.
Yeah.
I've learned about vitamins. I learned about how vitamin D helps the white blood cells on the attack, and vitamin A builds a wall around your white blood cells so pathogens or the microbes cannot penetrate the cell, weakening the immune system. I've learned about glutathione. I learned about olive leaf. I learned about a whole lot of things, especially during the pandemic, that I know is going to help boost the immune system. So please correct me on anything that I've said that which I'm not really qualified to teach, but I can share the information. But
Of course.
as a doctor, just let anybody know right now that's listening, if I've said anything that was false or incorrect in terms of what the immune system does for us.
Yeah. Yeah. So for sure, what you're saying is correct. So our body has an immune system that by design can identify any viruses, bacteria, fungal, or any foreign bodies that do not belong in your body, and it will attack it. The first line of defense will do that. So a lot of people who actually do get exposed to different viruses, including the
Mm-hmm.
coronavirus, they don't even get sick because their first line of defense, natural killer cells, T helper cells, it actually recognizes the pathogen and immediately attack it and doesn't even let it to go to the secondary line of defense, which is the B lymphocytes, etc., and the cytokines. And so pretty much uh, we are designed to have that. We are designed to be able to recognize pathogens and first line of defense, attack them, kill them, and then also have the second line of defense, which is then different cells, macrophages, lymphocytes, histocytes, etc. And then we basically have a second line of defense, which uh, leads to development of immunoglobulins, IgG, IgM. So this is what the vaccines promise to develop or create in the body, the second line of defense by production of antibodies such as IgG, IgM. So the antibodies can identify a particular virus or a particular pathogen and attack that particular pathogen. And so that is why, like, every year there is like a flu vaccine, which I've never taken and never plan to take it. And they basically design the vaccine so it will recognize a particular virum or a particular pathogen and immune you against that. And then when there is a new variant by the next year, they will have to come up with a new one that will recognize the new variant. So that is the limitation of the first line of defense through vaccines. But the body, once you have a certain virus and your body builds its own defenses through the IgG natural immunity, IgG and IgM that is developed through the natural immunity, second line of defense, that has been proven over and over again, much more stronger. Those IgG and IgMs last a lot longer beyond what a vaccine can do. And so that
So this is why
proves
he's
you,
talking about the booster shot, correct?
well, that is why they have the booster shot, because they recognized that the antibodies that have been designed to be created in the system after the first shot only last 3 to 6 months. So then there is a booster shot to again have it for another 3 months or 6 months. But the problem with that is that you're basically creating what is called antibody dependent enhancement. And even though it's an enhancement, it's not a good thing, because it keeps on programming your immune system to only recognize those variants, which takes away the recognition of the other variants or other similar uh, variant to the, let's say, SARS-CoV-2, thereby weakening your immune system. It is a medical terminology. I didn't make it up. It's in the science literature and scientific literature and articles and research articles. Antibody dependent enhancement. It's not a good thing. And so, yeah. So that is why these boosters that supposedly boost your immunity for the next variant or even the same variant, but because the IgGs and the IgMs they don't last, or the antibodies don't last for more than 3 to 6 months, they want to give you another booster, which is making the problem a lot worse.
Yes. So as long as they keep giving these boosters, those who are unvaccinated, well, we're gonna keep going through the. It's your fault because you don't get the vaccine. It seems like this is going to keep carrying on almost forever.
Well, that's another part of the propaganda, divide and conquer. So they tell everybody, oh, it's the unvaccinated that are responsible and they're spreading the thing or whatever. It's divide and conquer. And we, as a collective humanity, we need to be smarter than that. And that's exactly also what Hitler did, like you said initially.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what he did, making the other people uh, unclean and unworthy and malicious, right? That's what he did. He propagated this idea that the Jews are bad and they're unclean, whatever, whatever, And
Mm-hmm.
so, to the degree that before he put them in the camps to distinguish them from the rest of the people, they had to wear the Star of David. So they are distinguished. And that level of discrimination, segregation, we see how they're creating the subset in the minds of people, starting to say that the unvaccinated are the problem. This is it's their fault. They're doing this. They're spreading it. But then these kind of things, they won't work, because now they even are coming out and saying, not to the degree they should, but at least they're mentioning, well, it seems like the vaccinated are also catching COVID, getting infected, and they can transmit, and all of that stuff. And so, and also what you mentioned about vitamin D, vitamin A. In fact, vitamin D3, scientifically speaking, which no medical doctor is talking about. I mean, some of them are, but like the authorities, when they encourage people to get the shot for a donut or for a burger or for a beer, I guess in Oregon, or whatever, a ticket to this game or whatever, why don't you give them vitamin D3? Why don't you give them vitamin C? Why don't you educate them about these things? Instead of a donut, why won't you spend all these funds that you have allocated for the emergency fund? How come you're not giving them free vitamin D3 and vitamin C and zinc? So vitamin D3, in fact, blocks the ACE2 receptor, which is the receptor site on the normal human cell that is involved in a lock and key mechanism for the spike protein of the SARS-CoV-2. So when that binding happens between ACE2 receptor of the normal human cell with the spike protein of the virus, vitamin D3 inhibits the ACE2 receptor activity, so the virus can't even attach to it.
Wow.
So that's the beauty of vitamin D3. And the science is out there, but you have to question, why is it that they're not really looking at it? You know, they're not interested in telling the public. You know, same thing happens with astragalus. Astragalus
Mhm.
is also a herbal supplement that people can take, and that also inhibits the receptor site for that lock and key mechanism. Um, and there is another one, quercetin. Quercetin, what quercetin does, which is a very um, wonderful supplement, what this does is basically attaches itself. Quercetin attaches itself to the ACE2 receptor, not leaving room for the spike protein of the virus to attach.
Wow.
So there is scientific literature on that. A lot of this research is on PubMed,
Mhm.
NCBI or PubMed, and a lot of this research is conducted by the Chinese doctors who've been treating people with the swine flu, even with SARS, with MERS. So the scientific research is done and it's up on PubMed if people want to look it up.
So explain to us the messenger RNA. Is that anything that you can share with us? The messenger
Yeah,
RNA, and how does that relate to the DNA and what happens with medicine
yeah.
in that regard?
So messenger RNA, every living organism has an RNA and a DNA. Meaning not every human has has an RNA and a DNA. Some viruses have both DNA and RNA. Some viruses have either only the RNA or only the DNA. Now, mRNA is a messenger RNA. That's why it's called an mRNA, a messenger RNA. Why? Because it's coded with a message that will go
Mhm.
inside of the cell, and it tells or hijacks the factory of the cell what to synthesize,
Okay.
what to make, the factory of the cell, what to make. And I'm going to say it in a language that everybody can understand. So think about the messenger RNA as a postman that carries a message from a production team of whatever, you know, a company, and goes and gives it to this factory, okay, and says, please make this product. Okay.
Mhm.
Now, that's why it's called mRNA, messenger RNA. And so the messenger RNA's responsibility is go into the cell and translate the code of that messenger RNA, the code, the genetic code on the RNA, not on the DNA, on the RNA, and tell the cell, the factory of the cell, namely the ribosomes and the Golgi apparatus, ribosomes and the Golgi apparatus, what kind of protein to make. But the Golgi apparatus will also uses the same peptides, the same proteins that are now created by the ribosomes, and put together more and more RNA, more and more RNA. So what happens is, when Pfizer and Moderna created the messenger mRNA vaccines,
Mhm.
basically they synthesized in a lab. It's not the natural viral RNA. It's not attenuated virus. We call it attenuated. When they take the actual virus,
Hmm.
particles, and make a vaccine out of it, it's called attenuated. But mRNA, it's not an attenuated virus. It is a synthesized RNA. It's not naturally occurring. It's a
Okay.
synthesized messenger RNA that is a copy of the RNA of the virus, but it's synthesized in a lab. Okay, it's synthesized, and so the mRNA in the vaccine, it's a genetic code that is a synthesis in the lab, in the factories, of the act of what it looks like in the natural occurring virus, and then they need to engulf it or envelope it inside of something that the body cannot recognize, because as soon as you inject that RNA, the body will recognize it as a foreign pathogen and will attack it
Hmm.
and will kill it. So then
Wow.
it wouldn't have a chance to replicate. It wouldn't have a chance to reproduce itself. So what the vaccine
So,
companies, namely Pfizer and Moderna, did is they enveloped the mRNA inside of the lipid nanoparticle cell wall so that the body doesn't recognize it, the immune system doesn't recognize it, and so it can enter the body, and it can go inside and inject its RNA in the cells of the body to start the process of translating this code into more and more and more viral particles or proteins. So
wow.
your body becomes a factory, a machine that keeps on producing spike proteins. And that is why the side effects are happening.
Wow. So, and I understand some time ago, I heard Dr. Deepak Chopra had mentioned that they have found neuropeptides in the body as the same neuropeptides around the brain. So that means the body is a thinking body. So in order for them to bypass the neuropeptides, and that sounds like I heard you mention peptides. So for them to bypass that, is like they had to attack the mRNA directly, because the body, if they've done it naturally, the neuropeptides would have
Not
had the body to think.
neuropeptides, not
Okay,
neuropeptides.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So you could have neuropeptides, you could have other type of peptides, basically
Got it. Okay,
protein
okay,
chains. And
okay.
so it doesn't have to be the neuropeptides, and it's not necessarily at all. It's actually
Okay,
the immune cells that
got
recognize
it.
the first line of defense, that
Hmm.
recognizes the
Got
pathogens,
it.
any foreign body that doesn't belong there in the body,
So
and
the
attack it.
immune cells, got it. So the immune cells, are that the same as white blood cells, or are they a different set of cells?
Yeah, a lot of them are white blood cells, mostly
Okay,
are white blood cells. Yeah, but they're categorized in different categories and classes of white blood cells. As a white blood cell, you could have lymphocytes, you could have monocytes, neutrophils, eosinophils, that type of thing. And then you have the second line of defense, which is the immunoglobulins or the antibodies. That is the second line of defense. And those are basically as a result of your body having encountered an infection. And so, therefore, it builds a second line of immunity, which involves antibodies. So, therefore, theoretically speaking, you have lifetime immunity against that pathogen. And that's the natural immunity. Natural immunity.
awesome. Got it.
And it's the
Got it.
same thing that the vaccine companies try to do to create the second line of defense, the immunoglobulins or antibodies, IgG, IgM, etc., so that your body can be, immune against that, at least until 2 years ago. That was the promise, that once you get that mumps vaccine or measles vaccine, MMR, that you're immune for your lifetime, right? But
Right.
now they have changed the hypothesis. I mean, it's like bait and switch. They change things as they go. They
Mm-hmm.
change the story as they please, and now they're like, no, we can't guarantee that you have natural immunity for a lifetime. You have to get these boosters every
Mm-hmm.
3 months or six
Right.
months, etc.
Right. So
And that they also
here's
say that we don't
mhm.
guarantee that you're immune against it. We don't
Right.
guarantee that. In fact, they say it's not gonna be stopping transmission.
Mm. So
So
here's
then why are we doing this, if it's
right.
only
Right.
lasting like, and then considering the side effects in medicine, it's always about cost benefit analysis. Like, what is the cost of getting, meaning health, the cost that it has on your, the side effects, the safety of it, how effective is it? There are these different cost benefit analysis that you have to consider before you uh, allow administration, a public administration of a drug, a medicine, or a vaccine. How effective is it? Its efficacy. What are
Mm-hmm.
the side effects? So how does that weigh? Side effects versus the effects that are beneficial. Is it safe? Um, and once you have that in a scale, then you can decipher, well, is it better if I just get this infection and allow my own system to fight it and have natural immunity? Or is it better if I get the shot and have all these side effects that are, a lot of them are unknown because
Mm-hmm.
the long term effects have not been studied.
Wow.
The law, I mean, emergency use authorization, EUA, emergency use authorization for this vaccine was given within 6 months.
Yes.
Within 6 months. And that usually is not enough for a development and use of a vaccine in the history of the vaccinology. And it usually takes at least a few years, up to 2 decades. A lot of, like, smallpox and TB, for example, took 13 to 15 years for the vaccine
Wow.
to be fully studied and then administered to people, getting FDA approvals and other kinds of approvals, and be able to be administered to people. So when you
Wow.
come up with the, you know, Operation Warp Speed, and
Yeah.
no, I don't have any, things bad or good to say about the person who did it,
Mm-hmm.
Operation Warp Speed. But when you come up with Operation Warp Speed and have a vaccine emergency authorized within 6 months without any long-term studies, skipping
Right.
animal trials,
Wow.
skipping
Right.
phase 1, phase 2, then human trials, then looking at long-term effects of the the volunteers or the experimental subjects of this study, to see what are the long-term effects on those people.
Right.
Even
Now
the
here. Mm-hmm.
animal studies, the phase that involves the animal studies, it's years, because they study the progeny or the next generation of these animals, and they look for genetic modifications
Mm.
and mutations.
Correct.
Studies on fertility of the, let's say, mice or the ferrets that they use. Is it
Mm.
affecting that?
Wow.
And they never did any of it. 6 months to be given emergency use authorization, and then another, I don't know, I think it just got an FDA approval. Another 6 months since January till now.
Right.
As and who is the experiment? Who was the
People.
experiment? Because they're using, since January, whomever has been vaccinated as an experimental subject. And so it has been a global experiment on humanity without their consent. everybody who participated in getting the vaccine.
Wow.
And that's
Now,
their another 6 months to 8 months of like
right,
continuous
right,
to get FDA
right.
approval.
Now, I'm not licensed. I'm not a doctor. But what did not make sense to me is 70 to 80% of our immune system lives in our gut,
Is what?
and it is in our gut, right?
Oh, in our gut.
If they want to give a vaccine, the vaccine is supposed to be designed to help boost the immune system, but we have 80% of our immune system in our gut. How does the vaccine reaches the gut by a shot, whereas the gut is being reached by what we put in our mouths? Does that
Can
make a?
you is that, if that's a question, can you speak louder a little bit?
Yeah. My question is,
I
70 to
can
80
hear.
since seven. Can you hear me good now? Is anybody else listening?
It,
Can you guys hear me? Did the volume went low again?
yeah, it has been low from the beginning, so that's why I'm like getting closer to my computer.
Ah,
But then
okay.
sometimes even your voice goes lower, then I have a very difficult time hearing
Oh,
it.
okay. I'm
Yeah,
sorry about that.
no
How is
problem
it
at all.
now? How is this volume?
It's the
Is this okay?
same, but
It's the same.
if you speak a little bit maybe closer to the mic or a little bit louder,
Okay.
then it gets better. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. How is this?
I don't know.
Try.
Let's see. I
Okay.
don't know. Let's see.
Yep. What I was mentioning was, how does the vaccine assist the immune system when 70 to 80% of the immune system resides in the gut? That was a question that I've always had. I mean, of course, I don't have the degrees, the
Well, no,
PhDs for
here's
that,
it. The
but
thing is, like, we don't look at it that way in medicine. We don't look at it that way. We don't necessarily say that 70% of your immune system is in your gut. We say that most of your you have more neurotransmitters in the gut
mhm,
than in the brain. That's what we
okay,
say. But we don't say that, So basically, the premise of giving a shot in an arm and having antibodies made is because immediately as it enters the circulation, even locally, the immune system would recognize it and will go and attack and form the antibodies necessary to have long-term immunity. Okay,
got it.
so yeah, that's how it basically the premise of vaccines is based on that. It has nothing to do, well, is it going to your gut? Is it going here? Is it going there? It's not about
Got
that.
it. Okay, understood. I just wanted to be clear on it because obviously I don't know
No, it's fine.
that
It's
part.
fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do extensive research, but there's stuff that I just haven't found, and that I know I can ask someone like yourself, for clarity. And
Yeah.
why was I thinking a certain way? So you helped me
Yeah.
out there. And if
Yeah.
anyone else have any quick questions, feel free to 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 post them up here. I want to introduce you to someone who's a great fan of yours. Her name is Quintina Lee. She's heard you on Clubhouse.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, she was
Thank you
excited.
for being here.
Yeah, she was very excited to come here to listen to you today. So,
Thank you.
let's real fast before we close out. Let's talk about what people can do to boost the immune system. Especially those who are like me, who say, I'm not taking any shots. You're not injecting me with that.
Yeah.
Now I have all my vitamins. I even have olive leaf, and on top of that, I watch the things I put in my body. I work out and everything, but give them some medical advice, if you're allowed to. I don't know if you're allowed to on a podcast, but what can you give people to help
Yeah,
boost
as
their
far
immune
as, yeah,
system?
yeah, to help the immune system, to boost the immune system, yeah, for sure. So I'm sure by now a lot of people know about vitamin D3. So vitamin D3 is really, really important for immunity, but it's also been linked to incidents of diabetes, heart disease, hypothyroidism, or thyroid disease, and cancers. So a lot of people especially people of color with more melanin in the
Yes.
skin, are deficient in vitamin D3, including myself. And I tested myself first time 17 years ago, 18 years ago. My vitamin D was very, like, well, according to the medical standards, was low. But if
Okay.
you compare it to functional medicine standards, it was very low. And so, and I would have to say, when I do functional medicine blood analysis, which includes vitamin D3 levels, 90% of people of color, whether they're Middle Eastern, Black, from India, Asian, are deficient in D3, 90%. And amongst my patients, and amongst the Caucasians, 70% are deficient.
Hmm.
So um, the best thing is to get a test done, and if it's low, then accordingly supplement, because if it's really low, sometimes you have to take 10,000 IUs a day. That's how I started. I started with 10,000 IUs back then. And in fact, it took a few years for it to go optimal, to go to an optimal level. It didn't happen like that. And so, but let's say, you don't know your levels. It's safe to take, especially going to the flu season right now, entering the flu season in October, which then it peaks in December. And then again, it peaks in March and April. So that's another, during the spring, March, April, there is another peak. In December, there is a peak. So you want to do this as of now, as a preventative. And so it's safe to take 2,000 IUs of vitamin D3 per day for adults. Vitamin C, it's safe to take 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day as an adult. But if you get sick, or if you catch a cold or catch a flu, then you could up the dosage of vitamin C and vitamin D3. It is safe to have a vitamin D3 tested, and I do a functional medicine test that people can reach out to me, and I use a particular lab which is called LabCorp, and it's almost in every city in the States. And it can be done through telemedicine as well. Meaning I send you, email you the lab requisition form, you go to your closest LabCorp, and I get the results directly. And so but when you get sick, you can up the dosage of vitamin C to 4,000 milligram to 6,000 milligram a day for adults. You could up the dosage of vitamin D3 to 5,000 IUs per day for adults. You should be taking zinc. You should be taking zinc every day. It's preferred if you take it with copper and as a supplement, and 25 milligrams to 50 milligrams per day. You should be taking, especially as a preventative, quercetin. Quercetin is found in plant-based foods, in plants, basically, like red onion, like apples, like blueberry, things of that nature. But you should take it as a supplement as well, as a preventative, and also if you have the flu or you're sick. Like I said, astragalus extract, melatonin,
Hmm.
melatonin, uh, up to 5 milligrams per day, melatonin. And I mentioned zinc. Elderberry extract has been also proven to really help with viruses, SARS-CoV-2. It really helps during the cytokines storm. Mushrooms are very beneficial for the immune system.
Red
Uh,
reishi mushroom is good.
reishi,
Red reishi mushroom.
yeah, all of them, all
Okay.
of them, yeah. Um, Cordyceps is also very beneficial. Cordyceps, which is a type of mushroom, it's also you could also take it in supplement form or dried. you could make a broth out of it, etc., or a tea out of it. And that also is proven to neutralize the effects of the spike protein, both in vaccinated or and unvaccinated. To neutralize the effects of the spike protein, uh, pine needle tea, stinging nettle tea, these are some of the supplements that have shikimic acid, which has been shown to reduce the effects of the spike protein, which is one of the main problems of both the SARS-CoV-2 virus, but also the vaccine. Um, so there is a lot
Understood.
more, and I would be happy if people want to reach out to me.
Yes, I was gonna ask you, how can they reach you? Is there a website they can go to reach you?
Yeah,
Any
yeah.
preferred
So
website?
yeah, so they can go to yourvitalitydoctor.com. Your Vitality Doctor, fully spelled out, .com. And they can also either contact me or contact my office number, which is on the website, do a contact form submission, or send me an email. Um, and I would be happy to contact with you guys. And I also have on my website a button that says schedule now, and I, for a short time frame, I'm offering a half an hour free health strategy call that it can be booked on, if you click on the schedule button, schedule now, and then you could book a half an hour free health strategy call.
Got it. I did post it.
Yourvitalitydoctor.com.
Is that correct? I did post it up there.
Yes, that is correct.
I
Yeah.
spelled it wrong though.
Yeah.
That's your VI is it VITA, correct? Yeah. I think I got it. Your vitality doctor. There we go. I got it.
Did you
Got
find
it
it?
in there.
Did you find my website?
Yeah, I wanted to make sure I typed it in correctly because
Okay, I can
I did
also
spell.
text it to you.
Yes. Well, what I did, I wanted everybody else to see it, so I think I got it correct. Vitality,
Awesome.
your vitality doctor.
Awesome.
Um, we had a we had a couple of questions here. We have
Okay.
Mr. Fred Childers. I'm sorry, didn't mean to butcher his last name, but he had a question on vitamin D. He's a work from home person, so he popped this question up. Are you able to see that?
Thanks, Jay, for providing. Yeah, for those of us that work from home, is 20 minutes a day in the sun sufficient for bodies to naturally break? Um, I would say that really helps, and that is a must. But I would say, um, have your vitamin D levels checked, and especially with more pigments in the skin, the conversion. Once the sun hits your skin, the conversion doesn't take place efficiently to D3. And that's the problem with people with more melanin in our skin. So, um,
Got it.
yeah, I would say it's always safe to um, consider having a blood test done, but everybody should be in the sun for, at
Yes.
least 20 minutes to half an hour, even 45 minutes
Got
in
it.
the sun. Yeah.
Had looked like one more question came in. Don Callahan, interesting information regarding D3. He just popped this question up as well.
Yes, yeah. So Don was asking geographically, is the location does it have to do? Yeah, for sure. For sure. Like people in Scandinavian countries generally supplement with D3. In fact, their doctors put them on D3, their medical doctors. In, for example, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, because they have no sun almost for 6 months of a year. So it is,
Got it.
but only because you are in Florida uh, doesn't mean that. you it's not guaranteed that you have, you know, the proper amounts or levels of it. And if in doubt, get tested for D3. It's a very
For
simple
D3.
test that can be included if you know, either reach out to a functional medicine doctor, myself, or even your medical doctors. You could say, I
Right.
want to know my D3 levels,
Right.
and have them tell you what your levels are. And
Okay.
levels anywhere below 50 is really not optimal.
Okay.
Anything below 50 is not optimal.
Got it.
But your
Got it.
a lot of the regular labs or MDs will have you believe that a 35 is normal. So be aware of that.
Okay. So they would say 35 is normal. So what is the goal?
What is low? 35
What
is
is
low.
okay?
35 is low.
Okay. So
Yeah.
where do we want to be?
Closer to 70, 60,
Okay.
70. Yeah.
Got it. All right, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you guys for stopping in. I want to thank Dr. Atousa Mahdavi for coming through and agreeing to speak with all of us today. She's been amazing. You guys see why she's amazing. She's a wealth of knowledge, and I really appreciate her coming through. So before we close out, I want you guys to do me a favor. I want you guys to click these likes. You guys been listening. I know you've been focused on the information, but let's get these likes up, folks. Let's get these likes up. Get some thumbs up on here. Let's get some hearts in here. And I want you guys to also share this video. Please do that. Share the video because this video may help you. It will help people that you know, love, and you see often. So, and if it
Yeah.
didn't help you, it's okay because it's not for everybody. But guess what? This information applies to you whether you're ready for it to apply to you or not. So make sure you take heed to what has been shared here. And also, you guys can see on the bottom, I ask that you donate to the podcast. I don't ask for a lot of money, no more than $20. I'm not living my best life with your money. I don't need your money. So if you want to make a donation, no more than $20. And I tell you this every time. If you start sending me $50, $60, $100, I will decline it because I don't need your money. This money is strictly for the podcast. Eventually, we're gonna have to upgrade our equipment, so that's exactly what this is for. So that's a small donation, no more than $20, guys. I'm not looking for a lot of money, just to help the podcast out. And lastly, I want you to do me one bigger favor, and that is to sing like no one can hear you, dance like no one can see you, love like you've never been hurt, and live like it's heaven on earth. I'm Jay Hunter Lee. This is Dr. Atousa Mahdavi. We love you, and the world needs you. So
Yes.
stop that damn texting and driving.
Yes. Jay, can I ask, can I add
Yes.
something? Um, I don't know if you noticed, but in my bio, but I wrote a chapter for an anthology book that became a Wall Street Journal and USA Today and Amazon bestseller, April of
Yes.
April of this year. My chapter is about a healthy lifestyle that boosts immunity, and some of the very uh, the things that I spoke about today and more, like supplements and home remedies, is in that
Yes.
chapter. So if people message me on my website, I can send the link to that free chapter. So I
Awesome.
offered my
What's the book
chapter for
name?
free.
What's the book name?
Oh, the expert's cure. The expert's cure. But I wrote only one chapter, which is chapter 17. I mean, they can buy the book. My chapter is chapter 17. But as a offering to humanity, I offer my chapter for free. It's the link that I can send to people. And
Awesome.
yeah, but in order to do that, they can send me their email address. Then I can send them the link to get the free chapter.
Okay, great. Great. Well, thank you guys. Thank you, Dr. Mahdavi.
Thank you,
We
Jay,
would
for
definitely,
having me. You've been a great
yes.
host. Thank
Oh, well,
you.
thank you very much. Thank you very much. Hopefully, we can have you come back sometime in the future and
For
share
sure.
some
It'll be my
information.
pleasure. My
Yes,
pleasure.
yes. So, thank you guys for stopping in. I really appreciate you guys. Take care. We will see you guys soon. Have a great day.
Thank you, Jay.